Hey, gamers, this is Liz Davidson beyond Solitaire, and I'm so happy to be back for this year's commentary on the People's Choice Top 200 Solo Games, a venerable tradition. And I'm here with a fantastic panel of people to help me out with this. So, first, you know him, I guess, Mike from the One Stop Call Shop. How you doing, Mike Kelley?
I'm doing great. Good to be back. I think I wasn't here last year or the year before or sometime, but it's awesome to talk about this.
You have returned. Then we have Derek Rodriguez from Solo BG Podcast. Derek, you want to talk a little bit about your work since you haven't been on the channel before?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Derek. Like Liz mentioned, I have a Solo PG podcast. That's the name of the podcast, I guess, to say it, that I have. We are about 134 episodes so far, I believe. And yeah, we just, focus in solo and cooperative board games. And I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. And then we have Marceline Lyman. She is a solo mode designer. So, Marceline, you want to showcase some of your work real quick?
Sure, yeah. Most people might know me from my work on Oceans, although most recently I worked on the Trekking series, so Trekking the World, 2nd edition, Trekking the National Parks, 3rd edition. And I'm also just a freelance game designer. I do more than just solo games, but I also just love designing solo modes and solo games for people who want them.
Excellent. All right, so for this video, this is our first in a series of 3. So this is like overall commentary on the bottom half of the list. This is games 101 to 200. It's a big chunk of games. So I guess I'm going to start with Mike. I know you and I have been following the list. Derek, Marceline, we haven't ever talked about this. Is following the solo tops list like a tradition for y'all, or are you kind of like new to looking at it and thinking about it?
I would say that I generally I watch these videos. I love to watch these videos like when I'm sleeping. So I generally don't. It'll just put me to bed. It's very cozy. But so I usually will pay attention to this first video, which is from 200 to what is it?
101.
101.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually fall asleep by then because, we already know what the top 10 is probably. So usually it's usually this video here is what I'm awake for. And then all the future videos, I'll be asleep. So future me, I'll be asleep after this one. But yeah, I do generally take a look at generally the top 10 every year.
How about you, Derek?
Yeah, I really enjoy watching these sort of videos too, just because, especially the ones like where we're going to talk right now from the 200 to 100, right? At least for me, sometimes I hear about games or I found out about games that they were not in my radar at all. And when I hear like comments, I don't know, from all of you guys and fantastic content creators out there, it just helps me to find those, I call them hidden gems, right? At least for me. Or try to maybe makes me aware, like, okay, this game that I didn't hear about it, that has a cool theme that I might be appealing to. Now I'm gonna go and look for it. So yeah, I definitely enjoy them, and now I feel like super happy to be part of it. So
excellent. And then before we get the show totally on the road, I also want to send a thank you to Kevin Erskine, and then also to all of the amazing members of the One Player Guild who helped create an app to make all of this work this year. So Kevin just sent me a quick email he didn't want to come in the video. I invited him. But he said he was going to retire, but it was just too much work to input all the votes. But when he announced that, a lot of BGG users got together to create a solution. After endless discussions, Tiago created an app. Another group led by Zerbeek decided what games should be grouped together. I get the results from the app, and the rest is pretty much the same. They got a lot of feedback from people, so they love the app. And people can now rearrange and change their votes right up to the last moment too, which used to not be possible. You used to just have to send Kevin like a BGG mail, and he would manually do all this. So last year we were worried that an era was coming to an end prematurely. Fortunately, thanks to the wonders of technology and our love of solo games, the One Player Guild has got an app that's going to help keep this going, and Kevin can still be involved. I'm just really, really happy that we're here doing this tonight. So thank you to everybody who was involved.
Although I will say that looking through the list, I was immediately like, I don't agree with some of these combinations that they have decided to do. We'll get to those as they come up. We'll get to them. It's only a few that I was like, really? Those are totally different games.
We don't have to agree. It just gives us something to comment on. Gives the
Yes.
peanut gallery something to say. So speaking of hidden gems, let's just get right down to it. Would each of y'all be willing to name what you consider to be a hidden gem somewhere in this bottom chunk of the list?
Here, I can jump in. There were a couple of my favorites that, well, I guess hidden gem might not be the right word because none of these are, all of them were on the list in the top 200 last year. I think in the same spot in the 101 to 200. But two of my personal favorites that are languishing in the 100 to 200 category and have not risen up as they should are Skytear Horde. That's the 1 to 2 player kind of cooperative tower defense card game with some Magic the Gathering-esque card play. And Paleo, which is definitely not a hidden gem. Like, I think it won the Spiel des Jahres one year, but I still feel like a lot of people haven't played it. And Solo actually doing the two-handed version and not playing like the true solo variant they have in the rules. That's one of my favorite games of all time. So maybe not hidden gems, but they're Mike gems. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a thing.
And I guess for me, for example, I'm looking at the list right now, and I see some games that I haven't tried, but I'm definitely interested in on. And I have heard so many good things about it. For example, Pablo's House, which he was published in 2018 by David Thompson, which we all know that, David Thompson is a fantastic designer, and most of his games are usually tend to be, at least the ones that I have tried. I would put it this way: like I haven't tried any game from David Thompson that I'm like, kind of didn't like it. Usually they're very solid at least. And Pablo's House is one. It has one that I see on the list, and I'm kind of like surprised because once again, it's one of those things that I hear a lot of people talking very good about it, but I never see it in the top of lists, if that makes sense. Which I know we're understanding that going from 200 to 100 it's a big number, but I don't know. It just feels still for me like more than a gem, like more like a situation where like now I really had to dive into it. And the one that I'm surprised to see is actually one that Mike you mentioned in your most recent video and in a list that I shared with you, Star Wars: The Imperial Assault. I'm actually surprised in seeing it there because I know I'm in the minority of side of players where I really enjoy the solo mode of it with the integrated app that basically follows the same system as Mansions of Madness and Lord of the Rings and such. But I'm surprised to actually see it on the list, so I'm happy about it. Not more than a gem. I'm very happy to see Star Wars Imperial Assault getting some love, and I hope it's more focused on solo mode than the normal mode, I guess.
Well, and it's funny, Derek. So people won't know this unless you're patrons of the One Stop Co-op Shop, but I have a video coming in like a week. Liz and Derek both participated in it. I got top 10 lists from 21 other content creators, and then I saw which ones like matched my preferences. This is kind of like a fun little quick tour through a lot of people's favorite games. And Derek, interestingly enough, Pavlov's House might show up on a top 10 of somebody on this very video
Wow,
right
who
now.
could it be?
Who could it be? I have no idea. So
more reason to play.
I never play any of David Thompson's games.
Shut up.
So for those of you who don't know about my non-video activity, that's a joke because David and I now have 2 games that are in processing. So
and
I
the
kinda
one I
like his
played is awesome.
yeah, we got to show you the next one soon. It's going up for testing this weekend at SD HisCon. So
nice. Marceline, how about you? What was a hidden gem for you?
For my hidden gem, I would say my hidden gem would be Food Chain Island by Button Shy. It's I don't know if it's ever been mentioned on one of these videos or called out specifically, but I just think it's a really charming 18 card game. And what I love about it most is that it's a grid-based puzzle, but it also the main objective of the game is effectively cleaning the game up. Once the game is complete, you basically have all the cards in a stack ready to be thrown back into the wallet that it comes in. So I just think that little element of cleaning up the game being an element of the play is just such an elegant and sweet little part of the design. The thing that I'm most surprised by would be Sky Team. I did not know that there was a Sky Team solo mode. And not only that, but it's also ranked 179 in this list. because Sky Team is a 2-player game where there's like hidden information between the 2 players. I'm really surprised just to imagine that someone has made a solo mode for it. Definitely want to give it a try because it's one of my favorite games of the past year. However, I feel as if it's kind of a cheat to be on this list because it is a fan solo mode and not an official solo mode. So much that it knocked down some things that I think really deserve to be within this top 200, including like Daybreak, which is hitting 233. I don't know if any of you guys have gotten to try Daybreak yet at solo, but I think it's really, really good.
I mean, I will say there are a lot of games on here, even in the top 100, that are based on fan variants. So it's just kind of part of the nature. Also, I played one fan solo variant for Sky Team. I'm not sure if that's the one that everyone's playing. It's super elegant and super straightforward. Here, I can explain it in 10 seconds. You roll the dice for one side, you place all the dice. You roll the dice for the other side, you place all the dice. That's it. And it works great because you still have the limited information in that you don't know what the other side will roll. And that's all it takes. So it's actually really smooth. I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd much rather play it with my kids or my wife, but for a solo game, it's a fantastic quick time.
I wonder how it handles the there are some cards in the game that are like bonus cards where you can like trade dice sometimes. I'm curious how that's handled, or if that's just an element that you can't use.
I think a few of them you don't use, but a lot of them still work. You know, like the ones that are like, hey, if you put the same number on like the thrust this turn, you get a bonus. That still basically functions the same way.
Very clever.
Now, I'm a little bit late to the party, but I don't know if you guys are aware of the expansion for Sky Team. Does that one comes with the solo mode or?
Oh,
I don't.
No,
Turbulence, I believe it's called. I know I'm getting a prototype of it once it's ready. I don't think so. Is my I'm BGGing it real quick. Now it still says only 2 players, so I think the solo play will remain in the realm of unofficial. But again, it's a great unofficial mod, so Derek, definitely give it a try if you get a chance. It's a fun time even solo.
Fantastic.
Another one that just fell off is Paperback Adventures that I was really sad to see.
I see what you mean. It's in 211, yeah.
Yeah, just dropped off at 211. My numbers might be slightly off because I just copied and pasted this into it does whatever numbers I said in the past, just add 1 to it.
Oh.
That happens to me every year. It's all good.
Liz, following up on Marceline, can I name a couple that just missed the top 200 that I think are really good?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great place to be. But first, I do have to do my quick plug, which is there's always so many hidden gems in here because y'all have got to play some war games, okay, people? So not only is Pavlov's House absolutely fantastic, but it's next to Thunderbolt Apache Leader, and I'm just gonna die on that hill that it's great. Also down in here, we got D-Day at Omaha Beach, which by the way is
wasn't that number 1?
It's number 1
in the other video. That's so funny, the difference in these lists. Yeah.
Yes. So just kind of my obsession with historical games is such that I also run a separate list so that people can put their favorite historical solos, so I can see like what people actually like in that part of the community. D-Day at Omaha Beach is their number one without even a it's like the Mage Knight of historical solo gaming. So or I guess the Spirit Island now. I don't know. I guess we'll find out this year and it won't be a big surprise. But yes, there's some really, really good historical stuff going on down in this bottom chunks. And I just want to always be calling attention to it because it seems to be falling down the list every year. Although Fields of Fire jumped up 56 spots this year, back up into the top 200, and I'm stunned and delighted. So I'm just that's my quick plug. All right, now let's talk about things that didn't quite make it because it is a good conversation to have.
Well, if we could just pause real quick, I believe the only war themed game that I've played on this list is Resist, and Resist is so good. I'm glad to see that it is in the top 200. Right now it is 103.
See, but Liz might hate me. I was like, hey, Resist is great. You know, it's better. Fantasy witchcraft.
Let's just say I would be stunned. Witchcraft does not appear on the list below Resist. So I think we can assume It is the superior game. I like the historical game better, but Witchcraft I think is the better game, and we'll see if the community agrees with us in a future video.
Yeah, that's been on my mind because I'm actually right now. I just finished recording before I got on a playthrough of Red Dust Rebellion, which is the latest coin counterinsurgency game
Yes.
from GMT, and that's, I believe, the first full coin from GMT that's entirely fictional and sci-fi based. And it is interesting because they're just doing like wacky things with the mechanics. And I was like, yeah, you couldn't really justify this in the real world, but you can do whatever you want if it's sci-fi, So there's something to be said for that. But a few that are favorites of mine that just missed the top 200. Distilled. I don't know if any of you have played that. That's the one where you are distilling spirits. Very fun game. And then Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, my favorite dungeon crawler of all time. 204. Come on, people, get on the Red Dragon Inn train. Let's get that higher. And then I guess one more I'll name is Isla and Something Shiny. Fabulous solo, like kind of narrative experience. That one's amazing, and it's a lot more available now that North Star Games that you worked with, Marcelina, they got the U.S. distribution rights. So that's at 216. Those were three that jumped out at me on if anybody else had ones in the just outside the 200 that made them sad.
Yeah, I'm sad to see some oldies but goodies dropping. So like Ghost Stories fell 68 spots this year. It used to be a reliable like top 50 game, I'd say. And so, I know it's old and venerable more than it is played these days, but it just kind of like shows the passage of time. And Dungeon Alliance dropped 54 spaces this year, and I just always have fun memories of that one because it was one of my very first review copies that I ever got like years ago. And so the other thing that's kind of interesting about this part of the list, or like Flashpoint Fire Rescue fell 60 spots. That's another like oldie but goodie. This is a really good place in the list, I think, to look for things that are maybe not super new, but there's some old hotness that's in here that I think is worth always some attention.
Isle of Cats dropped really severely this past year by 113 spaces on the list. And right now it's 239, just outside of the top 200. Really surprised because I think I've heard a lot about this game in particular being really good for solo.
I like it better competitive, so I personally wouldn't put it as a top solo game because you kind of lose some fun elements in solo, but it's a very good solo game. It's just fun with polyominoes in general. Derek, what were the two that you wanted to say?
I want to say one, it's Australia, which is 79 spots. And I mean, personally, I love it. I think it works great. I actually think I prefer to play it solo versus competitive. Just because based on my experience, the few competitive games that I have played, it has speed up like crazy on the game, like very early on turns, and the game is pretty much over and Cthulhu takes over everything. So it hasn't been that fun. So that one, I'm surprised that it didn't make it, to the first 200. And the other one that I feel like is more like a think of like bad fame, I guess, if you want to call it, it's Etherfields. My experience with Etherfields, at least on the solo mode of it, has been super epic, super thematic, very immersive. Overall, fantastic, no complaints. Now, I understand, as we all know, that it was more of a problem on the first wave and the rule book, and everything was a little bit chaotic or problematic when the first wave was delivered to some backers. But then when they did the second wave and they did their 2.0 rules upgrade, it really improved the game and it really streamlined it. And it's a game that I feel like it doesn't get the love that it should deserve as far as like being super thematic, super immersive, and the world is crazy. I mean, and if you do it like I do, playing the Inception soundtrack in the background, I mean, you let yourself loose, and it's a super fantastic adventure. So I'm surprised it didn't make it to the top 200.
Derek, I've got a used copy of it that I still have never opened.
Oh, right. No,
one day, one day I'll get to it.
It's great. It's just I always highly recommend it because it's great for solo, of course.
Fantastic. All right, so kind of back in this bottom half of the list at 101 to 200. We've kind of noticed that some of these games rise and fall, sometimes in large amounts. Which rising games do y'all think are going to rise even further in the coming year? I'm going to say I'm pretty impressed with how much Fliptown has jumped up. So it's 513 spots. Dang.
Well, I think it hadn't delivered until this year. So I think if it
Yeah.
was on the list last year, it was from the people who had done the print and play version.
Right.
And the final version is a lovely like product, and I'm really glad it's doing well. I think they're crowdfunding their first expansion soon, or it's already done. I know Purple Moose Plays, a channel that I look at. He was covering the expansion. But yeah, Fliptown is great.
Yeah, I can see that one jumping some more, especially with the solo expansion. And then Nucleum hopped up 360 spots. And I feel like I've just started to hear a lot of buzz about Nucleum, which means that either I'm just out of the loop, which is entirely possible, or it's on the rise.
I mean, I think it's great. I've played it. I've not played it solo, but competitive, it's an excellent kind of economic Euro. One that I think is going to be way higher next year. It's just appeared this year at 197, so just made the cut, and that's Leviathan Wilds. If you haven't played it, it's easily one of my favorite games of the year. Absolutely adore it. You don't even know what it is, Liz?
No, I have no clue.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's the thing. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And it was only 197 this year. Its original crowdfunding campaign made like $200,000, like definitely successful, did well. Its expansion campaign this year, which hasn't delivered yet, but has funded, I think no pun included, and Shut Up and Sit Down, like gave it incredibly rave reviews within like a day of each other. So the new campaign made almost $1 million, made like $800,000. So I think by this time next year, it's going to be on a lot more people's tables, and probably it'll be, I bet it'll be in the top 100, I think, with that kind of crazy success they had with the second campaign.
I think that's a really good call for sure. I have not yet played this game, but I have eaten up so much of its content from videos and playthroughs. I'm really, really excited to get this one played. It really feels like just the right combination of like tactical and strategic decisions. I also really like its the games that it's inspired by, including Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to see how they play in the further missions. The one Oh, yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say real quick, I adore the game. And Steve from the Co-op Guild, he was just doing Extra Life, where they raise money for children's hospitals. And we did a live play of this one in the Tornado Leviathan, where the entire board is rotating and like what was up becomes down like 10 seconds later. So good. Everything about the game is great. But sorry, go ahead.
The one that I would put chips down on for like Rising might be Regicide. Regicide is a great game, and I think everyone knows it. It's gone up 55 places since the past year, and Regicide Legacy will be coming out within the next year, maybe. And I think that's going to ignite some more interest in playing the base game Regicide. Because the legacy component might scare some people off from, just I think people are not super into legacy component elements in games as much as they maybe used to be. So I think I could imagine people tapping into Regicide base game.
I'll also throw out Unsettled. Went up 212 spots to 135. That's one of my personal favorites. Derek, I can tell you like it too. Just like really awesome, fun, and varied kind of adventure exploration gameplay. Great solo, really good like solo puzzle. It's also very funny, which is like something I can only say about maybe like 5 board games that I've played in my entire life, that they're like actually laugh out funny in the writing and stuff. So yeah, I think that one might continue raising up.
And if I may say something about Unsettled, it's one of those interesting games that I also adore and love, because the number that it went high is crazy, and I think it's going to keep getting high. But it's one of those, like, it's super thematic, super immersive. Production is fantastic by Orange Nebula. And it's one of those that it has this weird thing with that, yes, you're in the space, sci-fi, exploration, everything, but you actually don't have any combat, or almost no combat at all in the planets that I have tried, right? Because you have the base game that is sort of like a model thing, and then you have all these expansions, if you want to call it, different planets, different puzzles, and you're going through different situations to survive, and you have your astronauts, I guess, let's call it, and your robot that helps you to achieve certain things and gather certain resources. But in most of the sci-fi games like this, you usually will get combat, right? Something to put you on the edge, I guess, if you want to call it that way. But this one, at least on the planets that I have played, there's no combat at all. It's purely survivor. So I think that's very unique and great because you don't see that very often in games. And yeah, I when you mentioned it, I was so happy to hear it because it's one of the ones that I was going to mention as well. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it will get to the top 100 next year.
You know, it's a wild one. I'm looking at like the ones that dropped the lowest. Actually, two really crazy ones. These are, I think, among the biggest drops that are in this 101 to 200 spot. First, the biggest drop within this range is Baseball Highlights 2045, which I think is a fantastic solo mode. And it dropped all the way down. It dropped 80 spots to 175. So it went from the top 100, I guess it was 95 last time, to 175. That's kind of crazy.
I think it was a big miss with they did a campaign in the past year, right, to bring a new version of Baseball Highlights 2045 to the market. But I think it was a big miss not to like revamp the game with like new graphics and graphic design and art. I really think that was a huge miss for this game because I actually have not played it yet, but I actually learned about the game from Liz's videos because I know Liz loves this game. And I would definitely own this game because I did grow up loving baseball, but I think it's something about the way the game looks and it makes it difficult to approach if you're not sure if you like the concept of a baseball board game. But clearly, I think this game looks great. I'm shocked that it's dropped this many spots.
Yeah, Marceline, if you don't like games that look a little funny, don't check out Liz's other recommendation of Thunderbolt Apache Leader. Because that has it has like awkward, like dad, like pilots, like ready to fly their plane. Oh man, it's great. The other one I was going to say is Brass Birmingham, the #1 rated game on BGG, dropped 62 spots to go to 174. Although, Marceline, this might be another one like Sky Team. I don't think there is an official solo mode for Brass Birmingham. I'm looking on BGG and seeing there's a few fan ones that have a little bit of love. But maybe that's why it dropped so much, because people were like, oh, wait, this isn't actually a solo game.
But, sometimes fan-made solo modes could be made into official solo modes. So who's to say that they couldn't one day be recognized as an official solo mode?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it can happen. So one other kind of I've just been kind of like meditating on this list. You can see things drop. So I guess it's also a good time to say like goodbye to some old friends. So for me, that old friend is Hostage Negotiator, which is like dropped a lot. It's clearly been replaced by Final Girl. And like I also absolutely get why. But Hostage Negotiator is one of my early loves. And I just adore it to this day. I still have everything for it. And so, it's one of those things where it's like, goodbye, old friend. What's interesting is that, sometimes the new game supersedes the old. I find it very interesting that Astronauts, which is sort of a more accessible play on Anne's End, has only gone up one spot this year. It's still hanging out at 153. And I'm not going to say where Anne's End is yet, but I think that we can guess that it's not at the bottom of this list. And so it's really interesting, like what games supersede their spiritual predecessors and then which ones do not. But,
I'll say specifically for Astronauts, and this might just be a me thing, although based on our Discord, I know lots of other people agree with me there. Astronauts has kind of lost some support from me because I don't know if y'all heard the news that the company Indie Board and Card signed a deal with the Invincible people, like Invincible, like the comic book series and the Amazon Prime cartoon series, and they are now discontinuing like Astronauts as Astronauts, and they are making Invincible products that are Astronauts and even are back compatible with Astronauts, but have different card backs and components than Astronauts. You'd have to use like opaque sleeves to actually mix them together. and they're just like going to take all the design work they were doing on Astronauts and be like, nah, Invincible's an IP and it'll sell better, and they're doing Invincible. For me, as someone who prefers Astronauts to Aeon's End, that felt like a big punch in the face. Although, like, I get it from a marketing standpoint. Like, I want something that's going to sell even more, but it feels like a little bit creatively bereft, in my opinion, and just like jumping on a cash grab. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's all Lizard's got.
Well, the abrasive AI art, as it's so called, is also something that's been a thorn for me. So, I mean, I don't want to go into it on a celebratory video, but
I think something to worth championing right now also is A Gentle Rain. Supposedly jumped 165 spaces. That's probably because many people did not get to own the game before the past year.
Yes,
because it got republished. And that's awesome. I could totally see this going up even higher as people continue to play the game. And now that it's hit target.
Yeah, and one that I'm interested in, it's not on the list at all this year because it just is, I think, about to come out. Tranquility has been one that's like been kind of, had a solo presence, and it's on the list in like the 400s. But Tranquility the Ascent, I got to play this year, and it's fantastic. I love it for solo. And it's not quite as relaxing as A Gentle Rain, but I think it's along the same lines. It's like something that's like very straightforward, very quick to play, nice little card game. So I wonder, once it has wide availability, if it might raise all the way up into the top 200, like past where Tranquility has gotten. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, the one that I'm surprised to still see on the list, on the first 200s, is Pathfinder, the card game. I mean, I'm still surprised that it's getting still like a lot of love from people out there. Just because I remember I played the revised version or the second edition or whatever it was, probably about, I want to say 4 years ago or so. And it still feels like, I mean, with all the respect to all the Pathfinder fans out there, it still feels like a very, I'm going to call it classic, not to call it something else, like, mechanic wise. And I mean, there's so many deck building games out there that, of course, they are fantastic, right? And this one was probably one of the first one that started the whole deal and adventure, when it comes to that, to make them thematic. But I'm just surprised. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all. I mean, I enjoy it on its time, but I'm surprised it's still on the top 200.
I mean, I'll say I really like the revised version, but it is a weird one to still be on the list because it's totally out of print. Like
I'm a Pathfinder hater, so I'm with Derek.
All right. Yeah, like for people who don't know, this is a weird one because the Pathfinder Adventure card game, they had this revised set. They put a lot of money into it. Like, it got like a whole graphical redesign, and it clearly didn't sell well enough because it was dead. No more copies being printed, nothing more being released for it. I feel like 6 months later, it was kind of crazy how quickly that just disappeared from existence. So, yeah. RIP Pathfinder. I think it'll keep on going down because it'll be harder and harder for people to find it and actually play it.
And I actually have a question about one game that I keep hearing good things, but I always hear that the setup is a big challenge to overcome for this particular game. I don't know if any of you have played it. Mr. President, the American Presidency 2001-2020.
Oh man, setup for that sucker is bad. I mean, the game itself is super interesting. I feel like it kind of should have been a video game almost. Personally, like, I know that people absolutely love this game. There are people who play it online, like on TTS and stuff, who really, really get a lot out of it. But that thing is legitimately a monster setup. I think it's worth playing. I don't know if it's worth buying, depending on how much you think you're going to play it. I think it's worth playing at least a couple times because it is an experience and it kind of pushes a lot of interesting ideas. And also, it's like weirdly nostalgic to play like a version of America that looks like the one presented in Mr. President, if that makes sense.
Okay, and we're recording this on Monday, November 4th. I don't want to talk about this game anymore.
Right.
I mean,
let's move on.
That's why I brought it too. But I mean,
yeah,
but
I want
it's
to see what
interesting.
you guys thought for that.
Yeah, I chose not to cover it because I was just intimidated by it. I think Jason from our channel did get a copy, and I think he was like, I'll do a playthrough. And then he got the game and he was like, I'll do a podcast talking about it. And like never recorded it because it's just too much.
Yeah. Actually, he's on my pod with me and Paul Wright talking about it from earlier.
Okay,
so if you want to hear it, it's there. Yeah.
This was definitely one of those that I had like a hyper fixation on for a moment and just like read a lot about it and like watched a lot of videos and listened to a lot of podcasts. And I kind of came to the same conclusion as Liz, where I think that it might be slightly too much for me to actually play in person, but I might try to test it out on TTS at some point.
All right. So
I'm going back to the question about, or the mention about Astronauts. I'm curious where Wormspan will settle over the next several years versus Wingspan. Like, I think that it's Wingspan is such a beloved game. I'm really curious how those two will shake out.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever beat Wingspan. I think Wingspan caught fire in kind of like a special way in a special moment in time. I personally like Wormspan quite a bit more than any of the Wingspan versions, but I also like dragons more than birds. I guess that just makes me a horrible person. But yeah, I cannot imagine Wormspan for like the general public ever achieving anything close to the like phenom, like New York Times articles interviewing the designer, like kind of stuff that happened with Wingspan, you know?
Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so in the interest of time, since we got to do a couple more of these, y'all, I just want to like close out with one more question, which is if you could get somebody to play or even save one game from this part of the list and put it back up in the top 100, what game would you choose? Who gets the golden buzzer?
I'll say, okay, I'll go because we haven't mentioned this one yet. Root is one of my top 10 solo experiences. I love the like Clockwork Automa, even though it is like a little bit of a hassle to work through it. I just love that I can take that game with so crazily asymmetric factions and like play them out. It's also great in the app for solo. So like there's a lot of ways to play Root solo, and I think it's fabulous. So yeah, that's a top 10 game in like many ways, and on BGG and all that kind of stuff. I would love for it to be in the top 100 solo.
What I can say about that is that Benjamin Schmaus and I have been talking to each other, and that's all I'm gonna say right now. No, so I mean, hopefully we'll do some more Clockwork stuff in the future. So you
gotcha. I mean, wasn't there already for like the most recent announced, like the current campaign? Isn't there like a Clockwork 3 for that one?
We're just gonna make a freebie so that people can play the new factions against the old bots.
That's right.
So that like, you know, it's not just like a totally dead system while we kind of figure out what we want to do next.
Gotcha. All right. Well, sorry to dig into the underbelly of leader games.
Oh no, it's all good. Happy to discuss to the extent that I just don't want to make promises that I can't keep, and I'd rather over deliver than over promise and then under deliver. So let's put it that way. Derek, what would you save?
I will probably save into the top 100. Of course, I'm not gonna say Star Wars Imperial Assault again, but following that route, Mansions of Madness. I mean, come on, Mansions of Madness Second Edition. It's a game that needs to be in the top 100 of everything. I mean, it's so, you know, once again, going with the immersiveness. I mean, you will know at this point, the people that are watching that probably don't know me, most of you, I'm sure, don't know me, that immersiveness for me is super important when it comes to a solo experience, right? You want to have that atmosphere, that setting that's kind of inviting you to keep going, right? More than a puzzling. I consider myself more like an adventurous guy more than a puzzling. Even though Mansions of Madness has a lot of parts where you have to resolve puzzles to unlock certain things, but I think story-wise, you know, narrative, immersiveness, everything, I think Mansions of Madness Second Edition does a great job, and I believe it should be all the time, forever and ever, to the end of time, on the top 100 list of every solo gamer.
Now, that is one of the most thematic games I've ever played, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, I think I would choose. I'm like going through this, and I'm like, I actually kind of like the current top 100, but I think I'm stuck between two that I would love to save. I'll go in reverse order. My number 2 that I would save is Oranienburger Canal. I think that game is very like underrated right now. It just dropped like 50 points from last year. But I really think that the solo mode is really fun. I just love being able to take my time doing like this extreme puzzle. And I just think it's a really, really wild time. The other one that I think deserves to be up there is Railroad Inc. Deep Blue. I think Deep Blue and I think the Green Edition in particular have really, really fun expansion dice. And it is a beat your own score, but I don't really play for the score. I just think the just playing the game itself is super super fun and pleasurable. I do wish it had more of a explicit win-loss condition, but you can't win them all there.
All right, so I've already mentioned Pavo's house, and we've talked about baseball highlights. So I'll just pick something different just for the fun of going through one more thing on the list. And that is, even if it can't be the top 100, you should at least play it, and that would be Black Sonata. I think Black Sonata is a fantastic small box game. It's a fun little deduction puzzle, and it is a design marvel in the sense that it is just a successful solo hidden movement game. Like, how it's irresistible to me. I love it dearly and always will. So I will just like to flag that. All right.
Yeah, I love that concept so much. That sounds so cool. I have yet to play that one.
Highly recommend. It's very, very fun. You will not regret it. And I think it's reprinting soon. Like, I backed a Kickstarter for it that hasn't delivered yet. So there'll be copies of it in the wild soon if there aren't right now.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to giving that a try at some point. Maybe we can tag team solo that one at some point.
That would be awesome. I'm all about alone together.
Just something about the deduction puzzle of that one feels like it'd be fun to do together.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I had played that one 2-player and it works really well. It's a fun game.
Absolutely. All right. Any last thoughts before we move to the next chunk of games?
No, I think I'm good.
Good.
All right, everybody. Hopefully you are enjoying the solo list announcements just as much as we are. Even though we get to see the end before y'all do, we're still here celebrating and enjoying it with you. We will be back with another video when a few more games are out and announced in the wild. And until then, thank you so much, everybody. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most of all, happy gaming.